know what time of the week it is. It's time to light them up, baby. Let's go.
You are tuned in to the Light 'em Up podcast, home of the hottest sports debate show on the internet. Each week, we feature 3D debates on the past, present, and future of sports. And if you don't come correct, you will get lit up. Thanks for listening. Now let's get into the action.
Welcome to Light 'em Up. We have Patrick and Prince. How are we doing today, guys?
I'm doing all right.
Hanging in there, man.
Today we'll be debating who is the best women's tennis player that is not a Williams sister. Patrick, since you are a member of Light 'em Up, you get to determine who kicks off today's debate.
I choose to defer.
You choose to defer. All right. Well, Prince, you get your 2-minute opener.
All right, easy money, now. Turn up the music. I'm kidding. All right. Imagine yourself watching TV and there's a tennis match on in the background. You tell yourself you're not a tennis fan, so you're not totally present. You watch the rallies back and forth and you wonder, who is this guy? He's fucking phenomenal. He moves so smoothly and he looks like he's gliding. This guy has impeccable technique, amazing forehand, can hit any angle even on the run, can hit the top spin, the underspin, the flat, and the high ball. Can hit the beautiful passing shot with extra spin also. Has an amazing one-handed backhand that can match and out-hit many two-handed backhands. You say to yourself, damn, that's graceful. The touch on the ball is impeccable. He's hitting slices and drop shots that look exquisite and making players look foolish. It's artistry. You then blink your eyes a few times because you're lost into the TV. You look again to regain focus, this time curious to figure out who's playing. You see the name, and it's Roger Federer, the most dominant tennis player in the men's circuit, and it seems like he's a cut above the rest. The shot maker of all shot makers, a natural. You then ask yourself, what if there's a women's player who played just like that? A female Roger Federer. There's been many great women's tennis players, but a good percentage of them don't compare to many of the men's greats with their style of play. Not too many of them have the touch and overall variety as they describe with Federer. But there's one player that does. Justine Henin. In fact, the great Martina Navratilova, who I didn't pick, was quote saying, Henin's offense is phenomenal. It's sort of like we've got the female Federer. How many women's tennis players hit a backhand better than Henin? The backhand isn't just beautiful like Federer's or Gasquet's, but it's surgical. She takes it early and pierces the court with that shot against two-handers and big forehands. She can hit any angle like Federer. And she makes every top 10 list, and many fans consider her to be one of the most fun to watch because she was so elegant with her stroke play. I concede my time.
Thank you, Prince. Pat, your 2 minutes starts now.
Steffi Graf is a tennis player with over 20 Grand Slams. She has accomplished the most rare and some would argue challenging feat to accomplish, the Golden Slam. She is a tennis player that, although may or may not be better than Serena, some would argue the greatest women's tennis player of the 20th century. Also, Graf remains the only player, male or female, to have won a calendar Grand Slam on free surfaces. They had each Grand Slam at least 4 times, 18-time Grand Slam champion, and her former rival, Chris Evert, said, Steffi Graf is the best all-around player. Martina Navratilova, as he mentioned, won more on fast courts, and I won more on slow courts, but Steffi came along and won more titles on both surfaces. Also, to punctuate her greatness in the 20th century, in December 1999, Graf was named the greatest female tennis player of the 20th century by a panel of experts assembled by the Associated Press. Her accolades go on and on. Also, you could argue that if it were not for Steffi Graf, Justin Henin may never became a pro tennis player. It was 1992 French Open that she got to see her hero. Yes, her hero, Steffi Graf. And inspired by her idol, Justine went on to win 43 singles titles and 7 Grand Slam singles, feats that are dwarfed and surpassed by Steffi Graf, the best female tennis player not named Venus or Serena Williams. I can see my time.
All righty, guys. We're going to have a 10-minute back and forth. Prince, Patrick, light them up.
All right, let's do it.
So,
listen, good.
First of all, Steffi Graf, he was ranked number 1 and won 22 Grand Slam titles. In 1998, she became the only tennis player to achieve the Golden Slam by winning the medal in the same calendar year. She's the only tennis player to have won each Grand Slam tournament at least 4 times. Furthermore, Graf is ranked number 1 by the Women's Tennis Association WADA for a record 377 total weeks. The longest period of time for which any player, male or female, has held the number 1 ranking. She won 107 titles. 1998. Prince, this is a beautiful year, 1998. Let me tell you why 1998 is a beautiful year for everyone who's a tennis fan. In reaching and winning all 4 Grand Slam finals, Graf became the first player in history to contest and win 28 Grand Slam singles in a single year, albeit including the walkover against rival Everett in the U.S. Open. To Seoul Games, if I can continue, the women's tennis Graf turns her slam into a golden one, as the headline said at the time. Graf then defeated Sabatini 6-3 in the gold medal match at the Olympic Games in Seoul to achieve what the media has dubbed a golden slam, something that Novak Djokovic failed to accomplish, Serena Williams and Venus Williams have never accomplished, and Justin Hardene has never accomplished.
Okay. Well, you mentioned all those accolades. 6 of those slams, were because after Monica Seles got stabbed in 1993. 6 of those are huge. Monica Seles was our biggest rival. Monica Seles was a more dominant player from 1990 to 1993. She played her and she beat her three out of 4 times in Grand Slams. She won 22 titles from 1991 to 93. She made the finals 33 to 34 times. Monica Seles. If it wasn't for some fanboy that was Graf's biggest, a big fan of Graf, that stabbed Seles in 1993 so Graf could regain world number 1. She would have lost. She wouldn't have won 6 of those slams.
I anticipated you saying this, and for my retort is, as for the mentally ill Graf fan who stabbed Monica Seles in 1993, it is not Graf's fault. She was quoted in saying in the year of our Lord 1999, to know that it was a fan of mine that did it, even though I had nothing to do with it, gives you a guilty feeling for always. There's no way out of that. Graf was remorseful, even though she had no role in the incident.
Okay, that's respectful, but the fact is, her biggest competitor was out during that time.
And, also, too, during Henin's career, she has been accused by several tennis players of poor sportsmanship, most notably by Kim Zolciak, Serena Williams, somebody that's actually pertinent to this debate, and Jelena Djokovic. Henin has been accused of feigning injuries to distract her opponents when she was behind in tennis matches, something that is in her control, whereas the allegations not even allegations, whereas what happened with Graf was not in her control, what that ludicrous fan did.
No, but Graf was a recipient of she had a chance to win all those championships because Seles was out. Seles was out. After Seles was out, the competition was watered down, man. Like when she first
got. It was not watered down. She had to go against Billie Jean King, Martina, and Chris Everett. If you want to call that watered down competition, then I want to know what is non-watered down competition.
Okay. Well, you look at Martina Navratilova.
Tennis players.
Martina Navratilova could not compete on the baseline. She did not have the foot speed. She was a serve and volley player. She was latter stages in her career. Chris Evert, she looks good on highlights. She does not have the pace on the baseline like the players that came out in the 2000s and present day female players. They don't have the same pace as Justine Henin played during her time. Serena had fast pace. There's a lot of players that played, Emily Mauresmo, Victor Azarenka, Martina Hingis, Yelena Yankovic, Safina, Davenport, Venus Williams, Caroline Wozniak. Marina Sharapova, Kim Clijsters. All these players played into 2000s and after the 2010, and they create good speed at the baseline, and they can run.
How many of them, though, you look at, to that point, I can see that it's something that even if we weren't debating, we'd agree on. Yes, they've had good careers. But it's really rare with somebody like Steffi Graf, when she has been doing this. She was ranked at the young age of 13, the youngest female tennis player to ever be ranked by the Women's Tennis Association. And she continued her dominance into the late 90s, even having what some people called the match, one of the greatest matches of the 20th century in the late 90s in the semifinals for the U.S. Open. to be able to stay relevant for that long is the true mark and testament of her greatness, amongst other things. She was always relevant. She was always in the mix. She never went out of style, and her play spoke to that.
Okay, I mean, I'll give you that, but she was a good athlete. But who'd she play? Martina Navratilova. She was later in her career. Chris Everett, later in her career, didn't have the power. She played Gabrielle Sabatini in the final.
You're naming
she
like
wasn't
all
that
Hall
great.
of Famers. These aren't all really good players. These are Hall of Fame tennis players.
These are Hall of Fame tennis players, but they didn't have the same racket speed and the same power that Justine Henin played during her time period. She played a much deeper field.
Then why didn't Justin Henin win more in her time period?
She played against Serena. And she still had a good record against Serena.
I'm not even using that as a rationale, because when it came to a record against Serena, Steffi Graf was 1-1 against Serena, and
she played Serena when she was a teenager. Yes,
but you can't compare. Like, we're talking about like the best player that's not Serena, and it's look at 22 slams. How many does? Come on, are we going to kid ourselves here? How many does Henin have?
Henin has seven slams. She only played 9 years, I think, and she should have won. She should have won a Wimbledon as well.
It's not my fault that she accomplished her.
I know it's not your fault, but I mean, she beat Serena Williams 6. She had one of the best records against Serena Williams, 6-8 record, which is one of the best records against her.
That is not Serena Williams. Okay.
I'm just saying that's a big feat right there.
Steffi Graf won the Australian Open 4 times, 1998 to 1994. The French Open 6 times, 1987, 1988, 1993, 1995, 1996, and 1999. The U.S. Open 5 times, 1988 to 1989, 1993, 1995, 1996, and Wimbledon 7 times, 1988 for 1989, 1991 for 1993, and 1995 for 1996, for an open-era record of 22 Grand Slam titles. Justine spent a total of 117 weeks as world number 1 and was a year-end number 1 in 2003.
She was dominant,
which pales in comparison to the 377 weeks overall that Steffi Graf spent at number 1.
I mean, the competition is completely different, man. The time period is completely. She was dominant. She was dominant in 2007. She was number 1 in 2003 and 2006. She was dominant in 2007 against the competition, even against Serena. She's got 1 Australian, 4 Frenches, 2 U.S. Opens. She should have won at least one Wimbledon. She beat Serena.
This isn't a sport of shoulda, coulda, woulda.
In Wimbledon, she beat Serena. She bageled Serena also in the Miami Open. Andy Roddick praises her racket skills along with Hingis for 2 of the best women's players to ever have great racket skills.
2 minutes on the back and forth, guys, until our
All right, awesome. Okay, so yes, 2016, Justine Henin had made all 4 Slam finals. This is a feat that Steffi Graf has accomplished with more Grand Slam wins. I'm talking about tournament wins. Henin may be the first woman to win at least 1 Grand Slam single title in the 4 consecutive years. That's Steffi Graf from 1993 from 1996. Steffi Graf did it first and more dominantly. Also, Steffi Graf had a duality to her that she could also play the doubles game, something that if you were a Serena Williams super fan like me, you would know that she could also do. From the beginning of her career until 1990, Graf regularly played doubles matches in Grand Slams and other tournaments, winning a total of 11 doubles titles.
All right, Billie Jean King, who one of the greatest tennis players, arguably, said Henin deserves a lot more respect. I don't know why we're not talking about Justine Henin all the time, because for her size, she was the greatest athlete we've ever seen. I don't know why she's not more appreciated. She's not cutesy-wootsy, but the way she's evolved as a tennis player is unbelievable.
I take Simona Halep, Victoria Azarenka, and over her, for her size. And I'm not saying, and maybe even Naomi Osaka. I'm being honest.
What have they accomplished? They haven't accomplished much.
They accomplished, just as much, if not more, Grand Slam titles.
I don't know if they've got 7 Grand Slam titles.
Well, I know one thing. I know Justine Henin doesn't have 22. I know Serena has close to 24, and this is way closer in terms of accomplishments to Serena Williams.
Graf's forehand was effective, but it was a short swing that took the ball late, which generated a lot of speed.
But the way that Graf played is
Graf had no backhand. She had no backhand.
Are you kidding me? She's one of the people that was the first used as a woman the single-handed backhand. So to say that she has no backhand is a disrespect to her and what she was.
She never used it.
And
she
that's our
slice.
time, boys.
All right.
Great back and forth there already, man.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Prince, you start out here on our closers. Your 2 minutes starts now.
All right, let's do it. All right. Many want to consider Steffi as the greatest aside from Serena, but they base it off of titles. It's easy to vote for Graf because that's what others say. But if you look at all the details, she's revered because of the style of play she brought during an older time period when serve and volleying was the main choice. She brought quickness on the baseline and stood out as a fan favorite because it was fun to watch and nobody else had that kind of skill at that time. Graf was more of a great athlete that played tennis. She played during an era where the competition was watered down. Navratilova was at the later stages of her career. Everett looked good on highlights, but did not generate the same pace of women's players today in 2000s. Graf's forehand was effective, but it also sat high on many returns, but she took it late. It was an awkward-looking shot at times and sometimes hard to hit when she was fully on the run. Sure, it was effective. She was scared to hit her backhand, even though she had a good one, like Pat says. Let's be real here, though. She was scared to hit it because it wasn't as effective. She played the slice for the majority of her career. If you look at the highlights, she was too scared to even hit the backhand. She'd never even use it in most of her matches. And seeing the backhand, it was decent, but it was not the same. And the take back in the full swing of the racket was not like Justine Henin's. 6 of her Grand Slam were a result of Celis being out, like I mentioned earlier. Graf because of the whole stabbing incident. Celis had missed 10 Grand Slams and wasn't the same player. She was a superior player, 22 titles, 33 of 34 tournaments played. Celis had won 8 Grand Slams from 1993, beating Steffi 3 or 4 times. Let's talk about Justine. She's a true tennis player. At only 5'5", she epitomizes the artistry of tennis while playing against a deep field. Thoroughly underappreciated for her contribution to the women's game. She's also 6-8 versus Serena Williams, one of the best records against her. She might not have won the Wimbledon, but she's beaten Serena on that surface, and she should have won a title again on grass, but came up short. Many fans have regarded her as the best women's player, and to be compared to Federer is unparalleled. I concede my time.
Awesome, thanks, Prince. Patrick, 2 minutes for your closer. Your time starts now.
All right. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the best women's tennis player that is neither Venus nor my favorite tennis player ever, Serena Williams, is unequivocally Steffi Graf. Although Justin Henin may have some respectable accomplishments, these are dwarfed in comparison to the accomplishments Steffi Graf has in the #1 streak, the Golden Slam, the later feat neither of the Williams sisters have yet to accomplish in their careers thus far. With the Martinas, the Billie Jean Kings, and the Everetts, there's competition to who is the best female tennis player who is not a Williams sister. And in that realm of female tennis stardom that you have to be in to accomplish this feat, Justine Henin is not in that tier. The genius of Steffi Graf and the enduring figure in tennis, she can compete with the Williams sisters at their best, and she has nothing that she has not accomplished in female tennis and in tennis in general. Ladies and gentlemen of ColorCast, Steffi Graf is a pure essence of tennis greatness, and she is the best tennis player whose name is not Venus or Serena Williams. I concede the rest of my time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of ColorCast.
Great closers there, guys. Starting to put the poll in. Thank you very much. Great job. Great debate.
Great stuff.
Let's see how the polls here are shaking out. We got Patrick off to an early lead, 4-2. Take a peek here, how many people we have in here. We have 8 at the moment. Packing it to 5, it's game over. 5, and Pat hits 5, and that is the debate. Patrick, you win this debate. Great job, guys.
Hi, I'm Patrick Ruch, host of Patrick's Happy Hour, weekdays from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about everything. Keep on tuning in to light 'em up.
Bring on Who Dat Nation and Blake. Get him on real quick.
Hey, what's good, Nelly?
How we doing?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to get into this. People in the chat that are curious, we decided not to go Tony Gonzalez because I feel like that'd be a pretty quick debate.
You could have gone Gronk, Tony G, though.
Yes.
I don't mind this, but I don't want to tip the scales. I'm gonna invite Who Dat on. We'll get this going. Who Dat, how we doing?
Oh man, sorry you guys. I had lost track of time. I had to run and drop something off real quick, but we all good, baby. I'm ready.
Great to hear. Blake, you determine who kicks off by being a member of the Light 'Em Up crew.
I'll kick us off.
All right. Everyone mute their mics. Blake, your 2-minute opening starts now.
All right. Kellen Winslow can't be the greatest tight end of all time when he's not even the greatest tight end in his team's history. Antonio Gates has one of the best sports stories of all time and is the best tight end of all time. He leads the Chargers in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Something Winslow spent all of his 8 years on the Chargers, but he didn't get near close to those stats. Antonio Gates was such a freak athlete that he didn't even play college football, but he still got to go into the NFL. He was pursuing basketball at Kent State, and he was a star athlete there, where he got his number retired by them. But he was deemed too short to be in the NBA, so he worked out in front of a few NFL scouts and still got onto a team, undrafted, and is one of the greatest tight ends of all time, if not the greatest tight end of all time. If you look at just statistics, Kellen Winslow is 16th all-time receptions by a tight end, while Antonio Gates is 3rd. Kellen Winslow is 14th all-time receiving yards. Well, Antonio Gates is 3rd. Again, 14th all-time in touchdowns, Kellen Winslow. Antonio Gates has the most touchdowns by a tight end in NFL history. That's why you play the game. Play the game, score points. Antonio Gates is better at that than any other tight end in the NFL has ever even gotten close to. I'm really curious to see what Hudap. I thought it was a really interesting choice picking Kellen Winslow. Tony Gonzalez or Robin Gasky would have been easy. Kellen Winslow is not even the top 10 tight end of all time. In his 8-year career, he only played all 16 games 4 times. He was injury prone. He wasn't that reliable. He did have some amazing seasons when he was playing, but again, that's when he was active. Antonio Gates is more reliable. He stayed healthy longer. Oh, we can go in time there. So let's see what JJ's got here.
Okay, thank you for your opening. Huda, you have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Thank you, guys. As Blake, I totally disagree. As what you say, Kellen Winslow is not in the top 10. Yes, currently, because there are a lot of guys that came along and broke those records. But if it wasn't for Kellen Winslow and, of course, Dan Fouts, back in the 80s, if it wasn't for Kellen Winslow, my correction, folks, if it wasn't for Kellen Winslow, the tight end position would have never transformed. I mean, the whole AFC West at the time were the peak of tight ends. Yes, we did have great tight ends back in the past, but Kellen Winslow, hands down, really one of the greatest tight ends. He was the main guy catching the ball as the air-rated horn West Coast offense of the San Diego Chargers. If it wasn't for Kellen Winslow, the Chargers would have never went to an AFC title game. They would have never made it to the playoffs. Dan Fouts would have never broke so many barriers to even put up the amount of passing yards. If it wasn't for Kellen Winslow being the go-to guy, the San Diego Chargers would never have stood a chance each and every season that they had Kellen Winslow. Am I lying on that? No, I'm not. Not at all. But one of the top 10. Okay, let's go to number. Can we? 41.
30 seconds.
Before that time, no one has yet put up those numbers. Yes, Antonio Gates, he did put up those numbers. Look how long it took him to break that barrier. 5 Pro Bowls. He didn't make that much. I give him that. Receiving yards, 6,741. Hands down, one of the greatest tight ends of all time. But don't get me wrong. And the one thing that they both have in common is they both don't have a Super Bowl ring. So count that out. They're both great tight ends, but Kellen Winslow is the founding father of the tight end family.
All righty, that's your 2 minutes, Huda. All right, we're going 10 minutes back and forth. Blake, you can unmute your mic. Your time starts now.
Kellen Winslow's a pioneer of the position for sure. He's one of the first tight ends I really saw being utilized more as a receiver. But Antonio Gates perfected that. Defenses weren't ready for Kellen Winslow. I'll give you that for sure. But when defenses were ready for Antonio Gates, we had seen more tight end play. People knew how to get closer to stopping the tight end. They couldn't do that. Antonio Gates was dominant. He was fine in the end zone, and Winslow just wasn't.
I give you that. But at the end of the day, look at the defense back then. The defense back then, and of course in today's time, were two totally different. Defense back then, they didn't have any penalties. They could do whatever they want. Kellen Winslow played in a more tougher league than Antonio Gates played in today's time. This here is total skills. Back then was total grit. So yes, he has more receptions, receiving yards, everything, because there's more skill. Anytime a DB was to put his hand on the tight end or anything, penalty. Back then, no penalties. It was.
I mean, I'll give it to you. It was a rougher league for sure. There was a lot less soft, and that's probably what cut Winslow out of his career. I mean, he had 4 seasons where he didn't play all 16 games. He had somewhere he only played 5 or 6. I guess that's why he had a shortened career. I don't even think he should be in the Hall of Fame for having 3 or 4 great years. That's the Hall of really good for a while.
Nah. Tread lightly, my man. Tread lightly. But honestly, though, he does deserve the right to be in fame. He does. I mean, if you think about it, what other tight end can you compare back in the 80s? If you take out Casper and Kellen Winslow, what other tight end was there catching premier tight end catching the ball better than Kellen Winslow and Casper? We don't know not one tight end probably just hitting besides Dwight Clark, who was a tight end, but we all know Dwight Clark for making the catch, but he wasn't the premier wide receiver. He wasn't the premier pass catcher. He was the premier blocker. Kellen Winslow transformed the tight end position to be a premier catcher. And if it wasn't for him breaking that barrier, Antonio Gates will be blocking or he'll be playing in the NBA right now as we speak.
Hey, that might be true. That's a big what if. I mean, yeah, he was a pioneer, but again, Antonio Gates perfected it. I don't think people really knew how to deal with tight end back then, but Antonio Gates overcame that. I mean, once again, you look at the stats, it's like not even close. Kellen Winslow was like 14th all time. Antonio Gates is top 3 in all the major possessions of receiving yards, receiving catches, and receiving touchdowns. If you look at all pros, too, Kellen Winslow was selected to, they were both selected to 3 first-team all pros, but Kellen Winslow only had 1 second-team all pro, while Antonio Gates had 2. And also, Antonio Gates had more Pro Bowls. I don't really know how we want to count Pro Bowls. Some of them seem more like a popularity contest, but statistically, they just don't even compare.
You're right, because Antonio Gates spent more time in the league than Kellen Winslow did more time in the league, and it just was a boat tougher due to the fact of how tougher the league was at the end of the day, and also at the end of the day. Yes, stats does and it don't compare. Yes, and Kellen Winslow did fall back down to the 13th, to the teens position. And Antonio Gates rises up. But his records are going to be broken also when it comes down to the time where the time passes back and it falls back. So I give you that. I do. I give you that. But at the end of the day, it really, if you think about it, yes, he is a pioneer. And Antonio Gates also is a pioneer. He transformed the tight end game also as a skill player, as a person who gets into the trenches to really get there, to get inside there, to also to block and to catch. Antonio Gates, yes, he did do that. He revamped it. I give you. But Kellen Winslow actually was the founding father of that. Like I said, we both make great arguments on both skills and grit and tougher league and not tougher league. So it's about what and what matchup. Yes, Antonio Gates has better receiving yards, catches, touchdowns. Yes, because look who he had quarterback. He went from Drew Brees to Phillip Rivers. Okay, who did Kellen Winslow have? Dan Fouts. That was it. Dan Fouts. If you combine both passing yards when Brees was there as a Charger and Phillip Rivers by itself couldn't even put up the amount of numbers that Dan Fouts did in that air raided offense back then in the Chargers in the 80s. And if it wasn't for the Freezer Bowl, the Chargers would have been in the Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, that's a big what if. Chargers also had a great team when Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates were playing together. Like, they got to the AFC Championship. They went undefeated at home. Kellen Winslow was not a part of the team that did that. And they were upset by one of the greatest teams of all time with the New England Patriots. Like, we can't really compare success here because neither of them really did too much. Neither of them got to a Super Bowl. I think at least Antonio Gates got to a conference championship, though.
Antonio Gates and Kellen Winslow both got to equally amount of AFC title games, one apiece. As a matter of fact, no, it was one apiece. The reason why I remember Antonio Gates got to that one because my cousin from LSU was playing for the Chargers at the time. Craig Buster Davis, number 84. He was playing for the Chargers wide receiver at the time, so I remember that. That was the only AFC title game that Antonio Gates and LaDainian Tomlinson reach as Chargers. LaDainian Tomlinson has more. Yeah, he has 2 with the Jets also. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a lot of what ifs. It's a lot of what ifs. But the one thing I can take away from this that overrides the whole situation, like I said before, Dan Fouts relied more on Kellen Winslow as much as Phillip Rivers relied on Antonio Gates. If you look at he had to rely on Antonio Gates, but when he had receivers that came there, Vincent Jackson, he was there. There were a few. Keenan McCardell, he was also there. Craig Davis, he was there. They had wide receivers, and you had a running back out the backfield that could catch it. What other wide receiver or running back was coming out the backfield catching it better than Kellen Winslow? None.
Nobody's doing that. But, I mean, if you want to look at the record, Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates have the tight end quarterback duo career record for touchdowns. Like, they did definitely more than Dan Fouts and Kellen Winslow did, more than any other quarterback and tight end ever did, and that still hasn't been broken. Like the season
And
records have
you're
been
right.
broken,
And you're
but
right.
this one's staying around.
Actually, like I said, by their years 7, 8 together, they actually set the record. They actually set the record together both, and I give them that hands down. And like I said, it's two different eras of tight ends. We both know that they're both great. Yes, Antonio Gates, his numbers match up to his criteria and the actions that he displays on the field. Hands down, the man is a great tight end. He deserves to be in the top, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. His time should be now to be in the Hall of Fame. Give him that. But like I tell people all the time, if we comparing both tight ends, yes, due to the errors and everything, and Kellen Winslow, he didn't stay long in the NFL because he had a lot of injuries. Back then,
With 2 minutes left, guys.
those times injuries didn't matter, but it matters now due to the CTE situation. But at the end of the day, it's two great errors. But no one will ever, I can say for both guys, no one will ever put in the work a little better than Kellen Winslow and Antonio Gates. Two great tight ends. But like I said, I feel that Kellen Winslow was more reliable tight end through not just red zone, not just on the other side of the field, throughout the entire 60 minutes of the game, same as Antonio Gates. Kellen Winslow is the most reliable tight end. I honestly, like I said in my argument, hands down to the people that are listening, I say Kellen Winslow is the greatest tight end of all time. Yeah, he didn't last long in the NFL, but look at the production. He set boundaries. He broke it, he set it, and Antonio Gates broke it and set it for himself.
Let's just go through Kellen Winslow's career. In his first season, he only played 7 games. The next 2 were his 2 top years. In the second and third season, he led the league in receptions in general, which is very hard to do. You don't ever see that from a tight end. I'm surprised he didn't bring that up. Kellen Winslow did have that. Antonio Gates never did have that. Antonio Gates was like going to the end zone and just wasn't as big of a target as Kellen Winslow was. But after that, there's a huge drop-off. He only played 9 games in the season after that. In this next full season, he did eclipse 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. And Antonio Gates is doing that consistently. After that, it was 7 games, 10 games, 12 games, and he was out. Kellen Winslow, I don't see how you can call him reliable when he was injured a lot more. Antonio Gates also did have his fair share of injury problems, but he was trying to play through it.
Yes, he did. And they both actually learned to play through it. If we're talking about production-wise and numbers, also, I didn't even have to bring the numbers up into the situation because everybody knows. Because if we go through a lot of...
All right, that's our 10 minutes. I'm sorry, I got to cut you off there, Hudat. That is the official
right,
10 minutes of the back and forth, guys. Great back and forth there. Hudat, you will start us off with your closer. You have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to say jury of the comment sections. I, Hudat Nation 94, proudly presents to you as my client, Kellen Winslow Sr. of the San Diego Chargers / LA Chargers, as of me representing for him to be the best tight end out of this entire debate between him and Antonio Gates. Yes, they both have had injuries. Yes, they both have put up great numbers. They have both equally amount of AFC title games played and appeared. But hands down, folks, who started it all? Who actually made it better for the next person in line to be the next greatest tight end to put on that Chargers uniform, as I say, Antonio Gates? Who was the one that set the boundaries? Who was the one to play past 60 minutes of football? And of course, the miracle in Miami that went double overtime. He didn't have not a lick of ounce. He was so dehydrated. He was really Jordan before Jordan in the flu game. I come to you folks and I bring this to you. Kellen Winslow Sr. is the greatest Chargers tight end, the greatest tight end out of this whole debate. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Hudat. Blake, your closer. 2 minutes starts now.
Once again, JJ, that was a great debate. You brought up a lot of really good points, and there's something to be said for being the pioneer, for being the first real tight end, someone that actually defined what this position is. But once again, Antonio Gates came in and did it better. It was for the same team, ages apart, different time periods. Definitely more of an air raid in the Chargers, in the Phillip Rivers offense than it was back in the 80s and 90s, Kellen Winslow. But you got to look at the end of the day, overall production. Antonio Gates has the most touchdowns by any tight end in NFL history. That's the bottom line. You play the game to score points. You play the game to win. Antonio Gates was found in the back of the end zone consistently. We'll break it down side by side one more time. Kellen Winslow is 16th all-time receptions by a tight end. Antonio Gates is 3rd. Kellen Winslow's 14th all-time receiving yards by a tight end. Antonio Gates, again, is third. Kellen Winslow's 14th all-time in touchdowns. It's a great career to have. Kellen Winslow does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but Antonio Gates will be in the Hall of Fame because he's first all-time in touchdowns. He did it better than anybody else ever has, and probably ever will with Rob Gronkowski being retired. We're not going to see anyone come close to either of these guys' numbers for a while, but Antonio Gates is the guy to go with. He had a longer career. He was more reliable. They both had some injury problems, but Antonio Gates is playing through it. Kellen Winslow is sitting out more games. At the end of the day, you're going to want Antonio Gates on your team instead of Kellen Winslow. We can look at the past and, be proud of what he did, but Antonio Gates changed the game. 8-time Pro Bowler, three-time first-team All-Pro, two times second-team All-Pro. He's on the NFL 2000 All-Decade team. I'm telling you all, we can sit it right there. Statistically, Antonio Gates is the clear, better player.
All right, thank you, Blake. Stone has the poll linked in the chat. We have 7 people in here. Let's get off to our voting. You both should be tried for war crimes for not having Tony G and Robert Gronkowski. Although I do respect both these tight ends, of course. I love them both.
Listen,
tight end's a great position, man.
Look, honestly, this was the most never overrated. This is the most underrated position that should have been for debate for years to come because it's a lot of great tight ends that actually played this game.
Oh, yeah.
And Tony G, I should have put Tony G into it, but I was like, oh my God, I gotta pick one. He picked Antonio Gates, and that's the one I would have picked. But I was like, let me just go
no worries.
From, so I was like, oh, but to be honest, the reason I didn't pick Gronk because I felt like Gronk didn't he put up great numbers, but I felt like honestly, he's still not finished playing yet. And he still got a lot more playing to do. The reason why I didn't pick Gronk is due to injury. There's a lot of injuries that a lot of tight ends take. But Gronk has been injured than any other average tight end that has played the game. Just like Kellen Winslow, Antonio Gates, those two hands down.
Right.
Like, just like Blake has said, and Kellen Winslow has been, if you look at it, Kellen Winslow has been hurting more times than Antonio Gates. Okay, I give him that because he played.
I have to cut you off. Who that? The votes have come in. Blake has won. So great debate, guys. We can talk about this more on cooling down if you want to come talk tight ends because I have a lot of shit to talk on the picks and who I would pick. But great debate, guys.
Congratulations, Blake, man.
Thank you, JJ. Thanks for coming on,
Blake, man. You
great shit.
You got it, man. You got it.
Hey guys, James Fleming here, host of the Pigpen Thursdays at 9 Eastern Time, where we talk mostly lists. We compare a lot of top 10s. Also host the Gamble and Ramble show Sundays before football every week. Stay tuned for more Light 'em Up.
For our last and final debate, who is the best? What is the best college football stadium? We're going to have Zach Cantrell up here, get him on as a speaker. And we're going to have C-Mac McBride up here, get him on as a speaker. This will be our final debate of the day. Zach, how we doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Yeah.
C-Mac, how we doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
I'm doing very good. So, like I said, we're doing the best college football stadium. Zach will be arguing LSU's Death Valley. C-Mac will be arguing Florida's The Swamp. Zach, you determine who kicks off today.
I'll start it.
All righty. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Well, McBride, congrats to you on your Lightning winning today, but I'm afraid that's the only win you're going to get today, my friend. When one thinks of the great environments of college football, there's those that'll pick Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, Army, Navy. There's a lot of them. But when kickoff happens after the sun goes down, there's one environment that stands out above all others, Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge. LSU night games in Baton Rouge date back to 1931, or 4 years prior to night games in Major League Baseball. They did it to combat the heat and the humidity of the region, and they did it to give blue-collar fans a chance to come to the game from their farms or rigs. What developed has been a culture of celebration rivaling anything New Orleans can offer. The energy and volume of Tiger Stadium has literally registered on the Richter scale multiple times. How much louder can a fan base or stadium be if they actually create a small version of a natural disaster? No state's more known for its cuisine than Louisiana, so who could possibly have better tailgates? The Big Easy may have Mardi Gras, but the stuffy, devout state capital has the most exciting Saturday nights in Louisiana throughout the fall. While college football allegiances mainly lie within state borders, playing at night also gave the Tigers national exposure in an era where LSU wasn't exactly among the nation's elite. It's also given them an identity, because no school in the country is more associated with Saturday night football games than LSU and Death Valley. And while we're on that subject, Death Valley does not belong to Clemson, no matter how much they want to tell you it is. The only Death Valley is in Baton Rouge. Who else uses the eye of the tiger at the 50-yard line? Who else has the unique color scheme of gold and purple? Who else spells go with an X? Not only that, When you walk into Tiger Stadium, you're greeted by Mike the Tiger. No, not a tiger that serves as LSU's mascot. I mean a real life, ready to eat you with one move tiger. I mean, if that's not an intimidating sight as you walk into a building, I don't know what is. Former LSU center and Sports Illustrated writer John Ed Bradley wrote, Tiger Stadium is haunted and all the ghosts favor the home team. LSU's won 3 national championships since 2003 and had legends like Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Patrick Peterson. And Florida really hasn't been nationally relevant since 2012. The Swamp is a great game day atmosphere, but there's no better atmosphere in college football than Saturday night in Baton Rouge for a big LSU game, which makes it the prime bucket list stop for anyone who wants to visit a college football stadium.
Perfectly on time. Appreciate it. C-Mac, your opener is 2 minutes. Your time starts right now.
All right, I see you, Zach, taking a little dig at my Lightning. So you know what? I'll congratulate the Cincinnati Reds for their win today. You know, it's pretty rare. I guess it must be a blue moon out today or something. But anyway, so on to my debate. As a Gator fan who has been to the stadium dozens of times, lifelong Gator fan, alma mater, I just have a firm belief that the Swamp is the best stadium for college football. But don't take it from me, please. Don't take it from me. Take it from well-esteemed ESPN analyst Lee Corso. I've actually got a quote here, and it says, "There is no better place than the Swamp. That opening on the big screen with the alligators, it's the best ever. When the Gators run out of the tunnel, it is absolutely the moment of moments in college football." And the moniker for this stadium is "Where only Gators get out alive." And you know, while they may not have the same seating capacity as stadiums like an LSU or Michigan or Penn State, the fans make up for that with their passion for their team. Over the last 10 seasons, the Gators are 47-14 at home. So that shows that, and this is including a few down years, 2013, 2017, 2021. Even with those down years, the fans still show up. They make this home field advantage as hard as can be, and the Gators are still able to protect their home field. And the stadium has traditions such as the Gator Walk during the pregame, as well as after every third quarter, they play the song "Won't Back Down" by late great Gainesville native Tom Petty, rest in peace. Everyone puts their phone lights on and waves them back and forth during the song. They sing along, and especially during the night games, it looks amazing, and that post-third quarter tradition is just unmatched. And outside their stadium, they have statues of their 3 Heisman winners, Danny Werfel, Steve Spurrier, Tim Tebow, as well as bricks all along the ground that honor players that become first-team All-Americans. And I just think there's nothing else quite like that in the country. And I can see the rest of my time.
All righty. Perfectly on point for both of you guys for the 2 minutes. I appreciate that. 10 minutes, we're going to go back and forth. Light them up.
All right, so you mentioned the Lee Corso thing about Florida. Well, Lee Corso has also said that the toughest environment he ever coached in was Baton Rouge, and he did that at Indiana. He got his butt kicked. He said, you got to be a lot better team to beat LSU at LSU. So, you know, I don't know if it's Florida or LSU, which one he picks, but it seems like more often than not, he goes on television, praises LSU.
You know, that may be the case. But, I mean, when you have 102,000 people in your stadium, I mean, I think it's, of course, Lee Corso is going to sway that way because LSU has 14,000 more fans in their stadium. But you know what? I've been a part of some of the loudest moments in Swamp history. Tennessee 2017, Felipe Franks 61-yard bomb to Tyree Cleveland. LSU 2018, Brad Stewart pick 6 to seal that game off of Joe Burrow, by the way. Number one.
Well, how about LSU 2007 against Florida, 5 for 5 on 4th down? And Tim Tebow, by the way, the greatest Florida Gator of all time, said he's been to the Swamp, he's been to all the SEC stadiums. He said he has lost his voice playing at LSU because he could not communicate, and said SEC fans and stadiums are loud, but at LSU it's louder in warm-ups than a lot of places are during games.
Okay, that's interesting. But let's talk about the actual makeup of the stadium here for a second. So I get what LSU tries to do by, you know, painting their numbers every 5 yards instead of every 10 yards like every other football stadium ever. But you know what? I get they're trying to be unique. But you know what? Unique is not always a good thing because it just looks stupid. I'm sorry to say it, but it looks stupid. The numbers are all cluttered. And it kind of gives off the insinuation that the LSU players and fans don't know where a 5-yard line is on the field.
As far as Florida's field's concerned, they have like 5 billion different names. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Steve Spurrier Field, the Swamp. You know, it's just so confusing where when you think of Death Valley, you immediately know what everybody's talking about. Not Clemson. That's LSU.
Do they, though? Do they?
The
But it kind of
uneducated
seems
think it's
like when
Clemson.
Death Valley comes to the brain, it seems to lean more towards Clemson lately because of how well they've been doing. They
And I
seem to
think
think that's the
LSU's
real
won the
Death
national
Valley.
title. They beat Clemson in the national title game, so they are in the right to be called Death Valley. But, here's my thing. LSU has the word death in the stadium's nickname. I mean, that alone will make you shudder. That's where people go to die. You go to the swamp to swim amongst gators.
Yeah, okay, that may be true, but like I was saying in the opening, the moniker is where only Gators get out alive. And like I said, even during the down years, they still managed to protect home field pretty well. They've never had a losing record at home in the last 10 years. And even last year, when they were down, Alabama came into town. They gave them a fight. They were a 2-point conversion away from going into overtime, and then who knows after that. But this was a down Gator team that lost to UCF in the Gasparilla Bowl against Alabama, who was the national runner-up, and they gave them a fight because the fans brought it.
I'll give you that Florida is a great stadium, and it would have won a poll for best college football stadium, but it would have won it in the 90s because that's when Florida football was nationally relevant. Since Steve Spurrier's left, it's basically as much of a 90s relic as Nirvana and Blockbuster. Like, it's still fun, and yeah, you still have nostalgia for it, but the Swamp has not been the same since around 2001. I realize that toward the end of the 2000s with Urban Meyer, it was a unique stadium, but Steve Spurrier made Florida and made that stadium what it is, and it's just not the case anymore.
Zach, apologize to Blockbuster and Nirvana right now. That was
I'm a big
ridiculous.
Nirvana fan, so I'm good.
Ridiculous.
I love Nirvana.
Yeah, so I mean, we could have a whole separate debate about when we think Gators football was relevant. I tend to lean more towards the 2000s just because we had those two championships in 06 and 08. But so let's go
LSU
into
has 3 national titles since 2003.
Yeah,
So
and
they
you
have
know
more
what
in that span.
If you guys don't mind, I want to position the argument this way: Does the team have to be good for the stadium to be good?
Usually, yes,
Exactly.
because the way when a college football team is better, usually the stadium is louder. I mean, there's a reason Vanderbilt is a friggin' cemetery because Vanderbilt football has never been good. The better the team is, typically the louder the stadium is because you play bigger games. Bigger games usually mean bigger crowds, mean louder crowds, better environments.
And generally, that's the case. But like I said, the Gators have had a lot of down years over the last 10 years, 2013, 2017, 2021. And in those years, the fans still showed up and they still made sure that the team protected home field. They still gave it everything they got. So I would actually say the team doesn't necessarily have to be good for the stadium to be the best, but it definitely does help.
I remember Florida State and Kentucky going there and winning pretty decisively, especially Florida State. I remember 2013, they went there and won like 30-0. And I remember Kentucky snapped their streak a couple of years ago. And I mean, this is football, not basketball.
And it was actually 27-2. But yeah, thank you for pointing out one of the down years as I was talking about 2013. Yeah, so
Georgia Southern won there too. Georgia Southern, not Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. Down year. Okay. Anyway, let's get off of that subject. Let's talk about some of the concessions that the Swamp has. They don't just have your generic nachos and hot dogs and hamburgers. They actually have some pretty legit places to go and eat at that stadium. They've got Gator
LSU has
BTW.
Cajun food. They have gumbo.
Yeah, so is the whole state of Louisiana. That's not unique.
Doesn't have to be unique. It's just better than regular tailgate food.
Anyway, so they've got Gator BTW, Jersey Mike's, Sonny's Barbecue, Chick-fil-A, Moe's. Like, these are legit restaurants that are in the stadium that fans can go and eat if they don't want just like the generic stuff.
But you could put that at any stadium in the country because those are all national brands. I think it's interesting where LSU, I think one of the biggest advantages they have is they're the only major program in the state of Louisiana. Well, you have the Seminoles and you got the Hurricanes down in Florida. So not everybody's a big Florida fan. And so LSU, not only do you have just the LSU fans, you feel like you have the whole state behind you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's easy when LSU is the only relevant team in Louisiana. Florida is a much tougher state as far as football goes. You got the Gators, you got Miami, as you were saying, you got the Seminoles, like you got all these different teams. So of course there's not going to be as many Gator fans, and I think that's part of the reason why the stadium capacity is not quite at the level of LSU and Michigan. But like I was saying, there have been players and fans of opposing teams that have gone to the Swamp and said, especially during those moments I was talking about earlier, Tennessee 2017, LSU 2018, Auburn 2019, they were saying it was the loudest environment they had ever been in.
Has Florida ever caused an earthquake? Because LSU has registered on the Richter scale many times. In 1988, there was a 4th down touchdown that literally registered as a small earthquake, a small earthquake. And when you look at Florida, yes, it gets loud, but it never has gotten that loud.
Yeah, well, I'm sure if the stadium had 15,000 more seats available, they could register that too, but they don't have that luxury, but yet the fans still make it work. They still make it loud. They still make it around 120 decibels at their highest. So,
See, that's an interesting comparison because, Michigan Stadium, for instance, I've been there. It's a library most of the time. So I think louder or larger capacities don't necessarily make the crowd louder.
well, yeah, it's a library because Michigan hadn't done anything in this decade until last year.
Thank
They
God.
fin-
So we got 2.5 minutes. I just want to steer the conversation real quick. We're not arguing the hardest place to play, mind you. That factors in. We're arguing the best stadium. So just so you guys know, we have a little over 2 minutes left here, and then we'll go to our closers.
Yeah, so LSU's concessions are pretty much S tier as far as college football stadiums are concerned. You can get wine, you can get beer just like everywhere else. But like I said, you get catfish, you get gumbo, you get all the classic Cajun food, you get jambalaya. I mean, everywhere you can go get a bunch of hot dogs or Jersey Mike's or pizza. Those are all high school and college stadiums all over the country. LSU's concessions are so different that, I mean, it's unmatched everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. So I want to steer this conversation, like Nelly said, back to just like, the root of the topic, the best stadium. And I think what makes the best stadium is not just what the stadium looks like, because it also just depends on, because, you're going to have visiting fans come in and they're going to expect a good atmosphere. And it's up to the home fans to provide a good atmosphere for them. And so when the stadium looks really pretty, but the atmosphere sucks, the visiting fans are never going to come back. And throughout the
Visiting
years,
fans have routinely ranked LSU as the number one stadium in college football. Like every major SEC outlet you could possibly think of. Some don't even have Florida in the top 5, but everybody has LSU either number 1 or number 2. And it's thought of by most people as the biggest bucket list stadium in college football.
Okay, well, I'm sure the Swamp is probably up there as well. But as I was trying to get back to, I feel like LSU's fan base doesn't really have that good of a rep in terms of treating the visiting team's fans that well. Where UF, on the other hand, yeah, of course, there's going to be a couple of bad apples in the bunch because every fan base has them. But I think overall, UF's fan base is the best at not only bringing the passion to their football team, but also treating the visiting fans with respect and making those fans want to come back in 2 years when the cycle rotates again to come back for their team.
Yeah, but don't you want your stadium to be more intimidating? Because then it causes more issues as far as the road team having cadence problems and all that stuff. I don't know if you necessarily want to be known as Mr. Nice Guy.
Well, it can still be intimidating, but at the same time, you got.
All right, guys, that's our 10 minutes. Sorry, I have to interrupt you there. Great stuff. Who, C-Mac, or which one you went first? Zach, you go first?
I went first.
Okay, that's what I thought. C-Mac, your 2 minutes for your closure starts right now.
All right, so Zach made some good points about, you can get gumbo and you can get jambalaya in all these places, but that's all of Louisiana. You can get gumbo and jambalaya anywhere. That's not specific to LSU Stadium. And like I was saying, or trying to say, I guess I'll say it now, but I just feel like when you have visitors come into the stadium, they don't really care so much about what the stadium looks like, because obviously they're not coming for that. They're coming to root for their team to win. But you want to, as a fan of the home team, as a fan of the Gators, you want to be able to provide an intimidating atmosphere for the fan base, but at the same time, not be rude to them, not throw water or beer at them, and not curse them out and give them middle fingers. You want to still, root hard for your team, but you also want to be respectful to the other team. And I think showing that good atmosphere to visiting teams can, make a stadium better than just the outlook of it. And like I was saying before, we have the statues, we have the rich traditions, we have the bricks, and it's like no other stadium in college football. And like I said, going back to the Lee Corso quote, he thinks it's one of the hardest stadiums to play on. I've been to the stadium dozens of times through the cupcake games against Idaho and Charleston Southern, and for the intimidating games like the LSU and the Auburns and the Tennessees. And I've never really seen much of a difference in sound. I feel like they've been loud for every game I've ever been to. So the passion is there from game 1 to game 12, no matter who the opponent is. And I think that just makes the fan base makes a good stadium in terms of that. And I can see the rest of my time.
All righty, thank you. Zach, your 2-minute closer begins right now.
Don't just take my word for it. Here's what several college football lifers have said about Tiger Stadium. Bear Bryant, maybe the greatest college football coach of all time, said Baton Rouge is the worst place in the world for a visiting team and that it's like being inside a drum. Chris Fowler has been to every major stadium and says LSU is his favorite game day experience. former Miami of Ohio coach Terry Hefner said we had more communication problems in Death Valley than we had at both Ohio State and Michigan, which are also known as two of the toughest places to play in college football. Like I said earlier, even the greatest Florida Gator of all time, Tim Tebow, who played his home games in the Swamp, said Death Valley is the toughest environment he's ever played in. The SEC is regarded by most as the best conference in college football, and while many SEC stadiums are loud, again, Death Valley has often been louder during warmups than most stadiums are during games. USA Today, ESPN, The Sporting News, you name it, have all named Tiger Stadium as the toughest stadium to play in and the loudest environment in the entire sport. LSU's won 77% of its night games in the building, and from the playing of Call 'em Baton Rouge and Neck, which if you've never heard that song, look it up, believe me, it's worth it, to the first notes of the Tiger marching band, the hair on the back of your neck starts before the game's even played, and by the time you leave, it's like hearing a jet taking off for 3.5 hours. LSU's been voted the drunkest stadium in college football. More drunks usually means louder people and a more hostile environment. I can't stress this enough. It's the only college football stadium in the country that has registered an earthquake multiple times. And I don't know about you, but with a live tiger ready to eat you in a possible earthquake, most teams are defeated before they ever step inside Tiger Stadium. I mean, you get the 5-yard increments on the yard lines, which no one does. You get old school goalposts that remind you of the old days. Tiger Stadium marries its past while honoring its present, and in a way that doesn't overpower you. From Billy Cannon's famous Heisman-winning punt return touchdown to beat Ole Miss, to the 4th down touchdown against Auburn that created the first famous earthquake, to Joe Burrow leading the greatest college football team of all time, night games at Tiger Stadium have left indelible moments no one will ever forget. The features that make the Swamp a tough environment are all better at LSU, where the Swamp does not improve on a single thing that LSU is known for. A lot of good teams come into the Swamp as of late, and although Steve Spurrier once said Gators are the only things that get out of the Swamp alive, Alabama, LSU, and even Kentucky have left the Swamp not only still swimming, but also victorious. The Swamp's an intimidating environment, don't get me wrong. Not a fun place to play, and it's tough to win there, but while it's scary to go to the Swamp, opponents shit their
And
pants
that's
when they
your
go
time,
to LSU
Zach.
on
I'm
Saturday
sorry.
night.
That's your 2 minutes.
That
Great
was it
debate,
anyway.
guys. I appreciate that. Great job, guys. Are there earthquakes? Let's see what the votes are going here. Give me 1 second. Excuse me. My app is going crazy right now. All right, so we have 9 people in here. Let's check the vote poll. That's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do.
Good debate,
Currently,
McBride.
Zach Cantrell up
Hey,
5-1.
good debate, man.
With 9 people in here, that will give him the majority in the lead. Guys, great debate. Way to close out the episode. I appreciate
It was. That was a good
Great
one,
job,
McBride.
guys. Come join me and Stone for cooling down, guys. Get some chats in. Everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it on Light 'em Up. Come check out the pod on wherever you get your podcast.